Triggers new evacuations in the Texas Hill Country and is slowing down disaster response efforts. Good evening and thank you for being with us. As of tonight, more than 130 people are confirmed dead from the July 4th flooding in the Hill Country, with 101 people still missing. Earlier today, the Kerr County Sheriff's Office urged all volunteers helping with recovery efforts to move to higher ground for their safety. Meantime, Texas Governor Greg Abbott says 5 Central Texas counties have now been added to the federal disaster declaration, which brings the total number of counties in that declaration up to 21. The governor is now laying out the state's next steps after that tragic flooding. KLTV7's Emma Burns breaks down what the governor and other state leaders had to say about the latest efforts.
The audio wasn't perfect, but the message from Governor Abbott was clear.
Job number one is always saving lives, protecting lives, and finding those who have lost their lives.
At least 21 counties are under a disaster declaration, and search efforts continue. Abbott said 101 people are still unaccounted for.
Those who are missing on this list, most of them, were more difficult to identify because there was no record of them logging in anywhere.
Despite the devastation, he says support is pouring in from 25 states across the country.
It doesn't matter if they're a red state or a blue state. They are fellow Americans. And when times get tough, Americans come together.
Lieutenant Colonel Baker with the Texas Game Wardens says they were prepared for this. More than 300 officers were deployed with search teams as early as July 3rd, the day before the floods began.
We remain dedicated to Texas, we remain dedicated to the people of the state of Texas, and Texas Game Wardens remain dedicated and ready on standby, Governor.
Abbott ended by calling for FEMA reform, saying federal help needs to move faster. But real strength has come from Texans themselves, with over 13,000 volunteers on the ground in Central Texas.
It's the locals who know what is best in responding to a disaster. They're the ones on the ground, and they know their communities far better than anybody else.
Emma Burns, KLTV 7 News.
And at a meeting this morning, a Kerr County commissioner pointed out the need for more diversion dams in the wake of the flooding.